Hello and welcome. I'm Scott Dennis. Jacqueline is on assignment this evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Topping our news, new DNA evidence has cracked open a nearly 20-year-old cold case in Sarasota. Now the man who deputies believe killed Deborah Dalzell in 1999 is behind bars. ABC 7's Jess Dowdrick joins us live from the home where Dalzell was murdered on Colony Meadows Lane in Sarasota tonight. Jess?
Scott, this is where deputies say Deborah Dalzell was brutally beaten, sexually assaulted, gagged with a sock, and strangled. And after thousands of hours of investigative work and hundreds of DNA samples, deputies say they have their killer.
For 20 years, he has been able to see the sun, breathe the air, smell flowers. May today be the last day.
Peggy Thistle finally has a name and a face for the monster that deputies say brutally murdered her sister, Deborah Dalzell. 39-year-old Luke Fleming, a man that lived only half a mile from Dalzell when she was killed.
We have dreamed of the day we would get the news that they had caught her killer.
It was March 29th, 1999, when Dalzell didn't show up for work. Her boss was worried and called deputies. Dalzell, who was 47 at the time, was found dead in her newly purchased home. The killer had scaled a 6-foot wall, cut a hole in the screen around the porch, and broke into the home.
Suspect DNA from semen found on Deborah's body was collected during the autopsy.
That's what ultimately led detectives to Fleming 20 years later. In 2015, deputies used a new technology called phenotyping. The analysis used the DNA from semen found at the crime scene and created this sketch of what the suspect may look like. Detectives used this to review past interviews, develop new leads, and interview more people. Then in 2018, detectives were able to get what's called a genealogical report to identify familial relationships.
Suspect DNA was compared to a database of DNA profiles from volunteer participants in an effort to identify relatives of the suspect DNA and how closely they may be related.
That led detectives to Joseph Fleming, who died in 2001, and his two sons, Jesse and Luke.
Jesse Fleming is a convicted felon, and his DNA is in the CODIS database, which eliminated him as a contributor of the suspect DNA.
Then there's Luke, who looks very similar to the phenological sketch. After a DNA sample, detectives determined Luke as the killer.
We never gave up hope. Our hearts are filled with gratitude. We are forever grateful.
Deputies arrested Fleming in Ellington on Sunday. He's been living in St. Petersburg for the last year. Live in Sarasota, Jess Dowdrick, ABC 7, your Suncoast News.